If you're interested in knowing what petrol gasoline is made of and how its very chemistry produces an explosion inside the internal combustion engine, thus making the engine turn, and then how its chemistry changes into exhaust gases, then keep watching this video, because the basics of this are explained here. Hello, welcome to the Repair Specialist channel, and to begin with I'll have to explain some very basics on gasoline fuel chemistry. In other words, what it's made of. Now, there are many other additives within gasoline that's put there to allow the gasoline to function the way it does. But with those chemicals aside, if we were to look at gasoline in its simplest form on its own, we'd see that each molecule of it has carbon atoms within it that are linked together very much like this by special bonds. Also bonded to each of the carbon atoms are hydrogen atoms, and so they surround the carbon atoms very much like this. But unlike a molecule of diesel fuel, which is shaped in more like a chain like this, the molecule of gasoline is more compact like this. It still consists of carbon and hydrogen, but it forms this slightly different structure. And because the molecule has got 8 carbon atoms, it's denoted C8, and because it's got 18 hydrogen atoms, that's denoted as H18. And together, C8H18 is the chemical formula of gasoline fuel. And you'll find a link down below in the description of a reference to this. But liquid gasoline in the fuel tank doesn't exist as just one molecule, of course. There's literally billions and billions of them all together, making up the liquid itself. So in essence, it's oxygen plus gasoline fuel plus a spark, which creates combustion, all in the presence of a significant amount of compression in the internal combustion engine. By looking very closely at a molecule of gasoline, we'll see how it goes through the combustion process. So in a good situation, this molecule of gasoline will exist there inside the engine with plenty of oxygen-rich air all around it. Of course, in the real situation, there'd be more than one molecule of fuel, and here there'd be billions. And of course, they'd be too tiny to see with the naked eye. I'm just emphasizing that the molecules of fuel need a good, rich supply of oxygen all around them. As the piston rises on the compression stroke, compressing the gasoline and the oxygen-rich air, there of course builds up a certain amount of pressure and heat as a result of that compression. So far, the gasoline has been able to withstand the heat generated by the compression alone. But as the spark plug fires, that increases the heat in the molecule or the molecules closest to the spark. And that pushes the heat over and above what the gasoline molecule can withstand. And now, those special bonds that were holding the hydrogen and carbon atoms together, forming the gasoline molecule, break due to the increased heat. And the breaking of these bonds themselves releases a large amount of heat energy. And this heat goes on to affect the gasoline molecules closest to it. It breaks their bonds and they produce heat. And this happens to the molecules closest to that. And this continues as what we would see as a wave of flame inside the cylinder, engulfing the whole of the inside space and forcing the piston down as the heat causes expansion of the gases. And left behind is a reconfiguration of molecules that we know as exhaust gases. So in essence, it's the breaking of these gasoline molecule bonds that we know as the explosion of combustion. And as we saw, instantly after this took place, these atoms then rebonded and created new molecules as exhaust gas molecules. So the difference being that the carbon atoms bond with 2 atoms of oxygen. So showing it in its chemical formula, we've got the C for the carbon and we've got 2 oxygen atoms. And this is of course CO2, carbon dioxide. And it's the first bit here in dioxide, the di, that's just another word for 2, basically meaning 2 oxygen atoms. And the other molecule that's been constructed consists of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So the chemical formula for this is 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, that's H2O, which is of course water. So it's carbon dioxide and water that's the product of combustion, and on the exhaust stroke these gases are emitted out through the exhaust. Of course, the water produced as a result of all of this doesn't come flooding out of the exhaust as a liquid, it comes out with the exhaust gases more like a steam. So what I've just explained is complete combustion. That's when everything's going well, when there's enough oxygen, and the chemical processes that are occurring are favouring a great combustion. But it's important to note that your average internal combustion engine doesn't combust fuel absolutely, completely and perfectly. But the more perfectly it does so, of course, the better. And so let's have a look how that differs from incomplete combustion. So there's going to be different chemical reactions going on inside the cylinder, and there's going to be different exhaust gases produced as a result of less oxygen giving air around the gasoline. I'm not saying no oxygen because there wouldn't be any combustion at all. I'm saying less oxygen. So in this instance, following combustion, first of all, there may well still be some gasoline molecules still intact in here. And that's because the heat may not have got high enough inside the cylinder to affect a lot of those gasoline molecules and break the bonds between the atoms that make them, as well as still having these unused gasoline molecules in there. Some of them, of course, that would have had better exposure to the heat would have been combusted, as we established, so there'll be some carbon dioxide as a result of that. We'll tend to find, though, that some carbon atoms are only bound to one oxygen, and the chemical formula for this is just what it's shown as, CO. So like always, we've got the C here representing the carbon, and then this time instead of dioxide it's monoxide. Mon from the word mono, which means one, so one oxygen. At the same time, as a result of incomplete combustion, carbon atoms can exist inside here without anything bound to them, so they're hanging around there on their own, again simply because there's not enough oxygen atoms to bound to them. And it's these free carbon atoms that can be seen in the exhaust smoke as black soot. The hydrogen atoms will always bind to the oxygen to make water molecules. And we can see now the products of incomplete combustion. We've got the deadly carbon monoxide. There's still water produced, but now there's free carbons as soot. So we can see that it's essential for efficient running of the engine to produce a situation where there is as complete combustion as we can possibly get. And so with that, of course, just covering the basics, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you've gained something from it. And please take a look down in the description below where you'll find a link to my website for some free downloads. I've designed these to help with diagnostics, troubleshooting and repairs of certain two-stroke engines, mainly chainsaws. And I shall be continually adding new downloads here, so please keep your eye on this side of the site so you can always be up to date with what's new on there and to continually see if there's any downloads of particular value to you. The best of it is that they're printable, so you can take them in the workshop with you and study them at your own time whilst you're working on your machine. There are some paid downloads, but most of them are and will remain free. And in the meantime, I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching.